Well, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Have a great one.
Thanks, Ron. You have a good Sunday.
Glad that shit's over with. Time to play some Fortnite and smoke some crack. Idiots.
Okay, hymns. You went on the Hymns House podcast. I've been on that podcast. There's a big cult following on this one. Are you long hymns?
I'm not long. I was long on when I was on the podcast. Then it fucking like doubled or something like that. I sold it. I even shorted it briefly. And I shorted Hims and bought Palantir as a pair trade. Because Hims had this like so-so quarter and Palantir had this killer quarter.
Yeah.
And Hims went up 20% on the quarter and Palantir's flat on the quarter. And I was like, hold on, this is going to reverse. And it reversed. So I do trade sometimes. I put the trader hat on. But when I put the investor hat on, I mean, this is obviously a management team that knows what the hell they're doing. I mean, this TAM is also kind of infinite. I mean, healthcare is full of broken shit to fix. And one of the first broken things to fix was, why can't I just get a prescription for the drug I want? And the answer is, well, doctors have to decide first. And it's like, well, what the fuck does this doctor know anyway? And the reality is, yes, look, I wouldn't want you to do surgery on me, brain surgery on me, Amit, but I do think that, I can fill my own prescription for birth control if you're a woman and you want birth control. What's the big deal? Everybody knows, everybody takes these drugs. Like, it's really not that serious. Cholesterol medicine. I mean, you don't need a doc for every single damn thing. And I think when you go to the doctor, it tends to create, oh, well, you have to do a blood draw. Oh, well, blood draw had this. Well, we're going to have to biopsy that. And it's this constant back and forth of you overutilizing healthcare when the reality is like, give me this drug, and this drug. And that's the way it should be. And I feel like, they have a check and balance there in a teledoctor, checking and making sure. But the reality is we spend way too much on healthcare. It's bankrupting our country. And HIMSS is, odd as it sounds, it's sort of an attempt to sort of fix some of that, as well as providing people satisfactory service. I hate going to the doctor to renew my script.
Yeah.
The doctor says, I'm not going to renew the script unless you come in, and I want to make sure that, these are the drugs I still want to prescribe. And there's a reason he's doing that. It's not for, fun or safety. It's because he gets money doing that, and he can build his practice up. And, HIMSS is kind of a challenge to the healthcare system of saying, let's do things differently.
Do you think they have a moat?
I don't think they need one. I think that, moat is a funny word. I had a bunch of friends at American Express who were investors with me that Buffett was a big investor in American Express, and Buffett visited Amex. And this is like an off the cuff, unrecorded kind of like chat. And Buffett's done a lot of these. And if you collect little tidbits you hear from people, it's kind of fascinating what he's not said publicly. And for Moats, he said, you guys have a moat, but what's a moat? He said, moat is when the customer uses a different part of their brain to buy the product.
Right.
What does that mean? Well, the part of my brain that buys the product, when I look at, a software service, I look at the price and I sort of say, I don't know, is this worth it to me? Do I want to pay $9.99 a month for this shit? Oh, maybe. When you see the Gucci hat and you say, I need that. Yeah. I don't care what the price. What's the price? You're already at the checkout and you look at the price. You need it. I don't care about fashion myself, but the point is, there's a different part of your brain that's operating. And I think HIMSS, it's tricky. On one hand, it's kind of a different part of your brain, but on the other hand, it's not. I think that their brand name is very valuable. People know HIMSS, they trust it. But on the other hand, yeah, I mean, somebody else could erode it over time. Their job is to build it and get it to a point where nobody can do that, and they make a fortress. So far, they've done well. There's thousands of these fucking things. Right. And we know HIMSS, there's Row, but like
you don't like it at 55. I think
it's okay. Yeah, I think it's okay. I think it's actually kind of cheap too, because they're actually growing cash flow really fast. Yeah. But all of Wall Street's really pessimistic because no moat, what's going to happen after GLPs, et cetera. But if you just take a step back and say, does this management, they've grown sales. So what's amazing about these kids is they're really young. Look at revenue 5-6 years ago. They barely had any. They have $2 billion in revenue now.
Yeah.
They went from like 50 in revenue to $2 billion.
Yeah.
Who does that? Can you do that? Can I do that? I've never done that. I made a $2 billion company. We never went from start to $2 billion in revenue. Holy moly. Who does that? It just shows you that these people know what they're doing. Now, again, you got to watch it like a hawk, but unlike Palantir and Tesla and even Robinhood, baby, the valuation on HIMS is quite reasonable. The price to cash flow is like 20 times. It's really not, some wild number. Now, Wall Street, the bears on Wall Street think that cash flow is about to collapse,
Right.
GLP and so forth. I don't know for sure. It does. I would argue it's just as likely it doubles, but it's one of these stocks that's like, it's tricky. I wish everything were cut clear, very, very clear longs. I mean, it could be rocky if the deal they have with Novo is a little complicated. Selling GLPs kind of under the table isn't exactly a great business to be in,
Right.
but they will figure out the next thing and the next thing and the next thing because they're HIMS. They always seem to figure it out. And healthcare is such a big space that, he's literally told you by 2030, we're going to be 6 billion. And it's not because he's guessing, he's got a plan, and look at the plan. Imagine being the Series A investor. Kid comes to you and says, yeah, 50 million valuation. How much business do you have? Well, a couple million in pharmacy sales. And you're like, okay, well, we'll see. And then 6 billion revenue. I mean,
Right.
Unbelievable success. I think he's probably going to beat the 6 billion. But again, is now the time? Is today the time? Your strategy wise, it's probably along. I think it probably belongs in most portfolios, but it's not to say it's riskless. Nothing is riskless.
Martin, is TLT the most obvious trade in the market as rates probably have to come down?
I'm not a macro guy. I've never been good at it. It's just not what I do.
Cool. That's fair. Okay. Rapid fire questions. We really appreciate the time, Martin. Audience loving you. We got 6,000 people here that really appreciate your thoughts, even if they may disagree with you, but you know how to communicate very well about the stock market. And that's because obviously you understand the markets really well. Archer, any thoughts on them?
Not really.
Okay.
Seems bubblicious.
Okay. Rocket Lab, any thoughts on them?
Seems bubblicious. I know a lot of people like this one, but man.
Okay.
Not for me.
Have you looked at Grab ever by any chance?
Not really.
Okay. MicroStrategy, Bitcoin. General thoughts. Does this explode?
Yeah. So one of my big hobbies is cracking Bitcoin, trying to. It's led me down a lot of really interesting roads. I have a GitHub repo on some of my work. I'll update later today. I think Satoshi's tokens on the this is very technical, on P2PK script, the original P2PK, not P2PKH or Taproot or SegWit, those tokens, which are about 9% of Bitcoin, they will be hacked. Now, whether it's me that does it or not, we'll see. But
wait, why are you so confident that they're going to be hacked?
The public key is shown on those tokens. You need to calculate, which is impossible, most people say, and a normal 99% of me agrees. 1% still going to try. The public key of the ECC curve is 256 bits, so it's 256 ones and zeros, or about 77 digits. That public key matches a 77-digit private key. If you guess this private key, you win. Every other Bitcoin, the other 91%, they don't show you the private key. So you don't even know what the number is to guess.